This is the K-pop cast, bringing you the best scenes and ideas in K-drama this week. I'm your host, Stephanie.
And hello, everybody. It's your PD-nim, Michaela.
And welcoming back to the show, one of our favorite all-time guests, my friend Cyhthia, is calling in all the way from Korea. What's up, Cyhthia?
Hello. I'm really happy to be back here with K-pop cast, Stephanie and Michaela. By way of introduction, I teach at a Korean university. And I also have a weekly segment on KBS Radio with Lena Park, where we get to dish about all the latest K-dramas and films.
Woo, that is so awesome. So we are really excited to have you here for this discussion. We actually had Cyhthia on for our last K-dramacast episode where we talked about The Glory and went into, all the critiques and the analysis of that drama. So we were asking Cyhthia, what should we do next? And Cyhthia was like, we need to talk about DP. Like, she mentioned DP a lot. And I was like, what's DP? And so now, what is it? A month or two later, here we are. Mm-hmm. We watched it and we are going to talk about it today. So on this episode, we are diving into a discussion about military deserters in K-dramas with a focus on the Netflix blockbuster Deserter Pursuit, or DP. I thought it was called Deserter Police, and so I might slip. But maybe if we just call it DP, I won't be embarrassed by that.
That was my fault. I kept calling it Deserter Police when we were talking about it, because that's how I remembered it.
That might actually be the correct term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right?
Deserter Pursuit sounds very Netflixy, but it doesn't sound that Korean, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So, like I mentioned, in our K-dramacast episodes, we've talked about a couple of other Netflix dramas, including Extraordinary Attorney Woo, The Glory, and we asked the question of, do these dramas really move the discussion forward on social issues such as autism and bullying? But today we're turning our focus to DP and whether it is moving the needle forward on the issue of just the military service, the mandatory compulsory military service that all Korean men need to enter, before the age of 30. And the topic of when people try to dodge or desert or for whatever reason don't want to be a part of that because of how they're treated. Does this show bring more nuance to that discussion?
But before we dive in, guys, don't forget to join the K-pop cast community on Slack. The links to all of that will be in the episode description. So let's get started. So DP, guys, it's been a few months and 2 years for me since I actually watched the show back when it came out in 2001.
2001?
Yeah, 2001. So
2021.
Oh, sorry. It's the heat.
I was joking.
Yeah, so this came out in 2021. And the Netflix boilerplate for this is a young private's assignment to capture army deserters reveals the painful reality endured by each enlistee during his compulsory call of duty. Yeah, so.
Were there any predecessors, TV shows or movies that have delved into that military service topic before? I can't really think of any.
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, this show specifically was based off of or adapted from a webtoon. So as far as previous media, you have the DP Dog's Day by Kim Bo-tong, I believe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a very similar story. It's not exactly the same. It was an adaptation, but it's again centered around this character, An Jun-ho, who is a DP and who's going through the realities of military service and what it means to go after these defectors. Who, I love this little quote when they're for the book where it says, "This is a story about how I'm looking for somebody's son, brother, or lover." These are real people that I'm going after and treating like criminals.
And so it looks like there's some other films that have maybe touched on this too.
Yeah, the Unforgiven, Blackstone.
I also thought maybe 실미도 might be a good reference too. This was a blockbuster hit that came out in, when was it? Like the early aughts, 2003. It was one of those almost, 천만 영화, I think, 10 million views. That's right. Oh, it was the first film to get over 10 million tickets.
What?
Wow.
And it was, no wonder it was by Kang Woo-seok, early odds kind of, director of these mega hits. And it starred Seo Kyung-kyu and An Sung-gi, right? Heo is
okay.
as well, Jung Jae-young. And it's sort of loosely based on a real life story about these like military commando type groups, like basically assassins, whose one mission was to assassinate like Kim Il-sung.
Whoa.
But,
All right.
it fell through and they decided to desert, right?
What?
They sort of mutiny, desert. And, they made it all the way almost like surprisingly close to the Blue House.
Oh, wow.
And, right? So, the movie is very loosely based on this historical incident. But I think it kind of had this essence of like when the military or when the government really kind of makes, like just uses these young men, right? To their ends. And then just makes them, just treat them like expendables, right? So I think that really hit home. And I think it was released on Christmas Eve or something, which is, again, a really popular time for movie viewing. So, like this sort of confluence of factors that I think made this movie super popular.
Got it. No, thank you so much for explaining about the context of how it was received in Korea, where sometimes, from across the world, we're not as aware of how certain things were received critically and by the audiences. So thank you for that. We over here in the like K-pop fandom world, we're talking about, where do we see the military in K-drama? And there's like rom-coms come to mind, or Crash Landing on You, Descendants of
so
the
much
Sun.
Fun.
It's just like all fun. It's just all these like hot buff guys like running around the base.
Just an excuse to see men in uniform and out of uniform.
Out of uniform, shirtless. Yeah, right. Or we as K-pop fans, like that's what we're served on, Netflix or Viki, and we're often not shown the more serious pieces of art, right? But that's why we're here today. You want to give us more info about this particular show, Michaela?
Yeah, just like looking at the point in time that it came out. This was again back in 2021, and it was actually premiered around the same time that Squid Game premiered. So it was kind of this era of looking at these Netflix K-dramas and seeing them go places that you would never see K-dramas or Korean television go before because they are Netflix dramas. And in Squid Game specifically, you see a very graphic portrayals, very similar, I guess, critiques of the system in different ways. With DP, I think it definitely got a little overshadowed, at least in the international community, because of Squid Game.
I didn't even hear about it until Cyhthia mentioned it.
Yeah, but it was very popular in Korea. I think some of the ratings it was like the number 10 show at some point on Netflix in Korea. And it sparked a lot of, these discussions again of like why the DP actually exists. And during this time, the military had to make like press releases about the fact that they are actually in the process of disbanding the DP. But again, this is in 2022 that they actually disbanded the DP. So this is
spoiler
an issue that has been around a while. It's recently been taken care of as far as like it doesn't exist anymore.
In that form, at least.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned also it was a breakout show for a lot of young
Yeah.
actors, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. During the second watch, okay, when I watched this the first time, there was only a few people that I recognized.
Mhm.
Obviously, the leads like Jung Hae-in and Ko Kyung-pyo I recognized. But then going through, I'm like, oh, here are all these actors from all these Netflix dramas that were so popular after. So like you had like Shin Sung-ho, who was like really popular in the Alchemy show, or oh gosh, what was it called?
Alchemy of Souls. Hwanhon.
Yeah, Alchemy of
Yeah.
Souls. Then you have like Hong Kyung, who was like one of the breakout hot guys from Attorney Yoo. Like there were just so many guys in this cast. First of all, it's a very male
And
cast.
Sokku from our Liberation Notes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like all of these guys really got a breakout. Or this is definitely one of those shows where you see them, each of their characters having their moments, and then you see, okay, this is like the show where they got to go and do those other big things later in the following years.
Yeah, I mean, I just did sort of a short run through
Yes.
of like basically every sort of face I could kind of recognize. And you were mentioning Son Seok-gu, Shin Seung-ho, but like that guy, the older guy, Hyun Bong-sik,
Yes.
it's hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
He's actually one of the younger actors. He was like 84. He's younger than Son Seok-gu, and he's younger than
No
Jung
way.
Hae-in. Yeah, he's
What?
one of those like actors that are really famous for looking older than his actual age. So he's always playing like the manager or like the konde
That's
manager.
hilarious.
Right?
Right.
Wow.
You mentioned Hong Kyung, and right now I'm sort of enjoying him in Akki with Kim Tae-ri.
Ooh.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that Korean sort of ghost drama from it's playing. I think the last show is airing tonight, but yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
it's just like-
previously in Weak Hero Class, like I think that was also a very popular show.
I mean, like there's Yoo Soo-bin from Crash Landing on You, Choi Hyun-wook, who really hit it big last year with 25, 21,
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Im Sung-jae. I really like this guy. Like he's kind of a new face, and he really hasn't kind of hit it big in big shows or mainstream cinema, but he's had quite a few roles in like indie cinema. And then this one series called Unframed. It's like this sort of, I think, 4 different actors, including Son Seok-gu, wrote and directed these sort of 30, 40-minute films. And he's in one of them. And it's
Nice.
apparently he also has a role in the next Ji-hook Netflix series as well. There's 2 female actresses that really caught my eye as well. It was Ishar,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
From she had this big breakout role with 나쁜 형사. And then Jung Da-eun. I saw her just recently in 사냥개들. I think she played the sort of the archery girl near the end of the series.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of amazed by this like huge pool of talent, right?
I think the last actor I'll mention is Lee Junyoung, a former member of UKISS.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, for the
Episode
K-pop
3.
fans out there.
It was so interesting seeing him in such an
Yep.
aggressive, violent role, like
Yes.
very, very different from his idol persona.
I was like, hey, what are you doing here?
I was like, oh, baby June, no,
Yeah, exactly, baby.
because he's the maknae. He was the
I
maknae in the group.
know. Well, everybody's got to grow up. So yeah, speaking of K-pop, that's a nice transition. Michaela and I were prepping for this show, and we were like, "What's the tie-in here to K-pop fans?" Or like, how do we, as K-pop fans, often hear about the military service? And to be honest, when I was coming up, and I was just like listening to K-pop purely. I would just hear all of a sudden that one of my idols, one of the boys from a group, is like being shipped off to military service. And we see the like really cute pictures of them with their short hair and with their uniform on, smiling. Bye, I'll see you in 2 years. And then they come back and they're like usually pretty buff and tan, and they do like a sexy comeback song. And it's like, hey. So it's like this almost like fun, lighthearted experience for many of us foreign K-pop fans to, say goodbye to our idols. They're going to do their duty for the country, and then they come back and everything's fine, right? We only in little hints here and there or interviews do you get even a joke or a sarcastic comment about what people actually go through in their military service. And with that said, I do want to say that I'm pretty sure our idols do not go through the life in the barracks and the hazing and the abuse to the level that, non-celebrities do.
I think
but
I
could be wrong, but yeah.
I think they go through the regular training camp, but often like celebrities are sort of are moved into these sort of celebrity kind of units, that entertain the troops or something like that.
Yes.
I mean, there was a scandal earlier. Every once in a while, a scandal pops up about how they get preferential treatment.
Yep.
They get time off longer than others and, things like that. But then there are also some celebrities that volunteer to do like going to 해병대 or something.
Right. Like, whoa, you don't have to do that.
And they really do the full service.
Yeah. I don't know. They want to feel alive or something. They want
to. On notes of some idols being in more performance driven, there was a big viral video that went around last year of a bunch of idols doing girl group songs, specifically New Jeans covers in their full army combat fatigue.
Yeah.
And videos of like brave girls rolling, all the military guys doing the cover dance of that. So it's all fun and games, right?
Yeah, from the K-pop fan perspective.
Yeah, we get this totally warped picture. But every now and then articles come out in the K-pop news cycle about celebrities who have attempted or successfully dodged the military draft. And then it's like a huge scandal. They have to like disappear from entertainment if they get caught doing this. I remember MC Mong in 2010 was accused of trying to get out of military service by pulling out his own teeth or getting them pulled. He was cleared of those charges, but he was found guilty of, deliberately delaying his enlistment on false grounds. But yeah, I just remember he had to leave. No one wanted to see him on TV and music or anything for many years. And even worse was this guy, Cyhthia Yoo, in 2002.
A little older.
Yeah, 2002, a Korean American who like still to this day is not allowed in Korea because like on pretty much right before his enlistment date, he gave up his Korean citizenship for American citizenship, like purely to get out of it. So that's just like, the most dishonorable thing.
Over 20 years of being basically exiled from entering the country.
Out, man.
Oh my goodness. When I still, when I listen to podcasts and his name and the current sort of article pops up, people still are like so angry. Like basically this, like military service is such a touchy issue for Korean men.
Yeah.
They have long memories when it comes to celebs who think, sort of dodge the draft or, it's just got preferential treatment in whatever way. I mean, there was a huge fervor about BTS, right? For the past couple of years over this as well.
Oh, yes. We discussed at length here at the K-pop cast. What are all the different angles and like, should they have to go? Should there be an exemption? It was intense.
They went to the White House that one time and do they get exempt from that? Like what?
Yeah. Right. I mean, Cyhthia Yoo can actually like visit Korea. You can get the visitor visa that any American citizen can get. But what he specifically wants is the F4 visa that allows him to work here. to, open a bank account, And so there are some kind of rumors that he is really itching to sort of start an Asian career. I think he's already maybe done some work in China, and he wants sort of a legal base.
Like a base, yeah.
In Korea, right? With the F4 visa.
Good luck with that, man. Like you kind of made your choice, But yeah.
Yeah, when I was looking into this, because I was seeing if there was any updates on his story, because I had seen his name pop up in the news recently, because there were some courts that were ruling in favor of him getting an F4 visa, though we're still waiting for final updates, I think, on that. But when he was initially turned down, when he tried to appeal before, like the quote I believe that the court said was that his act constitutes a threat to the maintenance and order in South Korea and the public interest.
Hey, now.
And that was like that really like put home the idea of how he is viewed in Korean society for dodging his military service.
Yeah, I mean, even DP, right? The opening sequence.
Yep.
There's like actual quote from, I think, the Military Act referring to the Korean Constitution, saying that all adult Korean men have to serve in the army, right? It's in the Constitution and, the Military Act.
Yes, and just as a note to our listeners, we would have loved to have a Korean man on the show talking about their service, but we all kind of asked around the folks that we know, and they were not really interested in speaking on the air about it. So, like, if any of you out there, have comments or want to come on and talk about this, definitely join our Slack, hit us up. We would love to hear more of the perspective of people who have actually gone through it. So moving on to Deserter Pursuit, I wanted to first start with the show as a piece of art, right? We're going to get into the social commentary first, but I know that, like, especially Cyhthia, you had really astute points about how artfully this show was written and filmed, and we just want to spend some time talking about that first.
DP is deeply critical of the Korean military, right?
Yes.
And I think the show shows how it doesn't just represent the military structure or organization. It actually represents a lot of the sort of ills of Korean society as well, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about widespread bullying and hazing in the military, you see the same kind of problems in the schools, in in companies. It's sort of everywhere. And there is this sort of Korean mindset about survival of the fittest, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
You don't want to be the loser or the loser, right? In the game. Right? It's survival.
We know all about that over here. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And so I think a lot of Koreans, when they watch DP the first time, they were kind of shocked with this really gritty, really in-your-face portrayal of the military. And, a lot of Koreans that I've spoken to have told me, they think that this series was made possible only because it was produced by Netflix.
Yeah.
They thought that if it were produced by a Korean broadcaster, the show would have felt a lot of pressure from the military, from the government to tone down its portrayal, right? In fact, after, DP became such a hit on Netflix, the Army TV service, apparently there's some their YouTube channel produced this short YouTube clip talking about the current 현대 모습, K 군대, right? The K army.
Yeah, that is something I forgot to mention at the front, that this was set, the show takes place in 2014.
Yeah.
Right.
So, it's not necessarily the current,
but they did that
I'm skeptical that much has changed.
They did a good job of choosing 2014. Apparently that was when a lot of like horrific things happened, like some of the, the ending of the show. We don't want to give it away, but apparently that was based on a real life tragedy that occurred around this
we
time.
can just say, spoiler alert for those who have not watched the show. We are gonna, we can talk about some of the scenes that happen.
Yeah. Anyway, so the Korean Army YouTube channel put out this sort of propaganda like clip.
Wow.
And then the comments were so awful that they actually took it down. Right?
What did they expect? Come on.
I know.
They really, they do not have a pulse for how people are feeling.
I know. I mean, like the sort of visceral reaction from the male viewers, especially, right? Because the show was just shot so well, produced so well. There's a lot of detail in sort of the visuals, the costume, the set design, so much so that Chung Ye-in in his interview said that like he got a bit of like PTSD, right?
Whoa.
He, from his army days, because he just felt like he was transported back to his service, right?
That's too real.
And he would actually, respond like 이병 청해인 with not his 이병 안준호, his character name, but he would just 이병 청해인, because this felt so real to him.
Wow. Yeah, and I'm sure like that he is. I mean, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing a lot of folks have not done any like processing, like trauma healing or therapy around.
Yeah, therapy is not big here in Korea too, right?
No.
And since like everyone has to do this, I think everyone just sort of believes, all Korean adult men have to go through this. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, but everyone tells them this is what turns boys into men,
yes.
So they sort of take this for granted. But yeah, it's actually a pretty horrible experience, I think, for almost all.
Yeah, it begs the question of what is a man? What exactly are they turning you into? What's the goal? Someone
that was the part that hit the hardest. Like on the topic of like boys to men, the intro for this show is just this basically timeline of like this young boy, like when he used to have his 100th day ceremony, and then you just see him like in like school plays as a young kid, and then like playing soccer and like going to high school and like talking to girls in college. And then all of a sudden it cuts to the entrance ceremony and everybody's hair is short. And it was, when I first watched the show, I was like, it was so sad. Just from the start.
Like that's when you know this is a great show, that they put a lot of effort and thought into everything. Because I mean, it seems like a very sort of nostalgic montage, right?
Yeah,
but then,
at
first, but the more you see it, there's like sadness. And then the last scene or shot where Chung Ye-in just looks into you and he's thinking, what is going on in here? And you just feel so sad for him, right?
Yeah. And then he turns away and he's just one bald head in a sea of bald heads.
Yes.
Right. That's really well shot, actually. Yeah. Like how it at once gives you the feeling of, wow, this could be anyone, and this is everyone. This is a big group, a big swath of our society going through this, but it is also like hyper-focused, individual, personal, emotional story. Yeah.
And I was kind of interested in the way like their DP, right, director of photography, decided to shoot this series with this sort of lighting and colors. I mean, you have this sort of like fog-like, mist-like effects at the army base especially.
Yeah.
Right? And there's sort of like color grading to give this drama a vintage feel. Because it is set in the past, 2014.
Yeah.
Kind of like an Instagram filter, right? And often you see this in movies and dramas when they're doing a flashback scene.
Yeah, the whole time I felt like I'm watching more of a movie than a TV show because of the look. Yeah.
But, on one hand, the whole series feels like a flashback, right? But I also felt it to be a little bit like nightmarish You know, it's not a pleasant memory, right? The
No.
colors, the saturated colors, you know,
Yeah.
the orangey sort of teal-like colors. And I think for a lot of Korean men, right, they watch this thinking, oh, this is like a nightmare from the past, right?
Ouch.
Especially the evening scenes, right? A lot of the sort of hazing takes place at night, right?
Yep.
Under the cover of darkness.
Oh, yeah.
And I just thought, wow, you know, no wonder, you know, the movie, or sorry,
And it's
the
like
series.
super quiet. There's no other noise around the base. You just, have the scene playing out of the bullying.
Right. So, you know, I just thought this whole team really put a lot of thought and effort into, you know, to make this experience, like their experience of the army, come to life, right? To use all the sort of tools at hand to make that, you know, sort of vision realized.
Yeah, because
Totally.
there are those moments that are feel very real and raw, and then there are also very more surreal moments, especially like in the cases where An Junho is having his flashbacks. That was something parts that confused me the first time, because
Me
they do
too.
suspend reality in situations where he's, you know, on his night duty, and he's you know, seeing visions in each of the prison cells that he's guarding of his past.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
And even the very last, you know, the final scene, right? Which is, again, spoiler alert, but
Yeah, go ahead.
it looks like he's actually deserting the army,
Right.
I know, right?
right? But obviously he's coming back for DP2, so
Yeah.
that's not the case. I mean, it's like an emotional desert, like saying, I'm not just going to follow orders blindly. I
Yeah.
think that's
'cause he-
sort of
That's
the
the
meaning.
first step.
He decides
Right.
to walk away from the group that's marching in one direction,
Just
and he
doing a
goes in the
drill.
opposite direction towards the gate.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful. Honestly, like when the credits rolled on the end of the first season, I was like, man, I'm done with this. but then the post credit scene came on and he walked away, and I'm like, all right, I'll watch a little more.
Right.
You know, because I was like, how can I root for this character that just continues to go along with everything? He's conflicted, yes, but I was like, I need to see more resistance, like stat, you know. But for me, I think the fact that action he took was only at the very end, and I was left wondering before that. I was like, is he gonna resist or not? I think part of that is because the show struggled with what genre is it trying to be. Like there was a buddy cop action feel to it in a number of the episodes that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, as I was really hoping to get into like critiquing and resisting this system. But then all of a sudden I'm on like a funny, like comedic high-speed chase, you know, like toppling over barrels and, you know, chasing the bad guy. And there wasn't much questioning in those scenes. It was like for fun. And so I was just like, okay, when are we getting to, you know, but I do like something lighthearted, but I think in the context of a police show, like portraying the main characters chasing a bad guy, quote unquote, as like fun, happy, it's problematic to me. Or it sends the wrong message.
Yeah,
or it
especially
conflicts. Yeah.
Especially in the case of like they're trying to say that what they're doing, or what we can interpret as saying what they're doing is actually wrong. But when they're gamifying it and making it fun, it detracts from that message.
A bit. Yeah. But that was my main thing.
Actually, I kind of enjoy those scenes. Because I have a tough time watching a series like this. Like if I had to do like 6 episodes of those night evening sort of hazing scenes, I could not watch this series, right? And I think, you know, Koo Kyo-won's character, right? He's the one that character adds a lot of kind of humor into the series.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't actually part of the original webtoon. Kim Bo-tong and the director decided to create a new character just for Koo Kyo-won, right? And I think they wanted to balance out some of the, the tragedy with sort of the humor. And they purposely used this sort of detective kind of like, you're right, buddy cop genre into the show, I think, to make it a little bit more palatable, I mean, that Busan scene, do you remember?
When they're on the tour bus?
I know.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love that actor. He's hilarious.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's wonderful.
But I was like, oh, I don't want to be laughing along with a cop who's doing like arresting people who shouldn't be arrested.
Yeah.
But he's not a cop, right? He's an army. He's just like a soldier like everyone else. That's the funny thing about DP. They don't use professionals. They just use
just whoever.
other whatever, like soldiers. And, in the episode 1, the qualification for getting into DP was like, if you're above 175, then you get into the short list.
Exactly.
And that is totally
are you
like
serious?
the army. It's like, there's no rhyme or reason to this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I love those kind of details because all the while, the writer and the director is saying, this is the army. Like, it just represents all of these sort of like hierarchical, irrational aspects of Korean society. And you see it sort of crystallized in the army, where the army, right, it's really a really closed sort of unit or entity to itself. It gets no sort of auditing, is there, or 감사 from hardly any other, government organization.
Yeah, who
right?
would? Who would do that? Yeah.
Right?
That's risky.
Right? If some soldiers are charged, they get their own military court, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, it kind of, just wait, we were on a tangent. What was our original point?
I know. So we're still, we're talking about the genre here and the acting, the actors we loved. What were some of our most memorable performances or scenes in the show?
For me, it was absolutely Choi Hyun-chul. He has a nickname. He's called the Joaquin Phoenix of Korea.
What?
They
really?
They believe he has a sort of intensity, which is kind of funny because he also has this sort of very cute, nerdy persona as well.
Yeah.
Right? But that scene, it's that nightmarish scene where he's running down this very narrow passageway in this apartment building, right? The director uses a body cam to get this full effect of how basically his, emotional state, like his mental state is just breaking down. He's just falling apart, right? It's a mental breakdown. And
because this is after his character Suk-bong has first, attempted to take revenge on his bully.
Yeah,
with Hwang Jang-soo.
Jang-soo, yeah.
After Hwang Jang-soo has left the military and has gone back to being a civilian, is like a sad guy working in a
right.
Oh, that's right.
That was pretty funny. That they had him working at a convenience store after he was like such a big
by
shot
his manager
in the army. Yeah. Yeah, but I remember exactly the scene you're talking about, and I was pretty impacted by that camera work. I felt like I was there with him.
Yeah, I believe he won Best Supporting Actor at the Paexong Awards for his performance, right? And yeah, I just thought that was an amazing scene, and the rest of his performance too. It was just so brutal. The final episode as well.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, there were scenes when he was the one doing the bullying as well. And that's what I wanted to see. Like, not that I enjoy watching bullying, but I really wanted more of like, where do bullies come from? Right. Or like, how does it start? What is the trajectory into bullying behavior? So many of these villain characters just like they start as evil. And that's not as interesting to me as what we saw with him and like where the behaviors come from.
Yeah, he was like an artist.
Yeah.
Beaten down by the system and turns into this sort of
high
monster.
school kids.
Right. Follow your dreams. He was like, yeah.
And his nickname
sad.
was Bongdi, like Gandhi. I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh.
Too sweet. No, that's a really good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So wrapping up, I guess, this section of just scenes, definitely the most memorable, and I think, you know, because it was such a visceral imagery, has to be the ending, where you see Sukbong's character just after he's attempting to take his own life, just this massive, like, all you see is blood. Like, you can barely like make out a face, and he's just calling out for his mother. And then you hear An Junho just letting out this scream, and it's not like a masculine scream. It's very like a visceral, just, I am looking at the most horrible thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And again, watching this back in 2021, I was like, oh, okay. This is a reminder that this is a Netflix show. Like, because if you're watching this on network,
what?
it would have just been like all
They're
blurred.
showing this?
Right.
Oh.
And as far as like, again, this came out around the same time as Squid Game. In Squid Game, they show you everything. But this show, I feel like, while you do see a lot of like, violence, as far as like the most, I feel like they are a little bit more purposeful in the things that they do choose to show you. Because it again, with that scream that he lets out, it takes me back to episode 1, which ends on the mother seeing her son's body after he's defected and also takes his own life. And the scream that she lets out, which when I first watched, I noted that they're really, they don't cut away from it. They really just hold on that scene and let you hear it and hear the actors' reactions to hearing it. And letting you know that this is, again, you're starting off the show really honing in on the emotional and traumatic effects that these experiences in the military have on not only on the soldiers, but also the families as well.
Yeah, really powerful. And I think, Michaela, you were saying that the writers or was it the director that wanted to take a step towards changing things by showing the raw, personal, human side of this like larger social phenomenon. I think that was their goal here, is to, take the story from just news headlines or like a larger social thing and make it like really personal. And it was these scenes and these screams in particular that did it.
Yeah, because again, going from the trailers, me going into the show in 2021, thinking it's just gonna be this happy-go-lucky buddy cop thing.
Yeah.
And I actually started, because I was a little not sure if I was gonna like the show. I started on episode 2, which is a lot of that. So going back and doing a rewatch and watching episode 1 and then going through the whole show again, it's like, oh, okay, so this was actually there from the beginning, that it was going to be this very intense show showing you the trauma of these kinds of events. Yeah. And then I wanted to, so I was looking for some quotes that the director was talking about for season 2. And he did kind of mention, like, with this first part and the second part, he mentioned in an interview specifically that he says that they can't stop injustices that keep happening. But as we develop and make this series, we want to keep it in our mind and keep putting it in our thoughts and think that that's the most important, that's the most important part about making this series is, I don't think, he doesn't think that this series is just, the show is going to, stop all of these horrible things from happening, but, showing it and keeping it in people's minds, especially people who haven't been exposed to this for the first time, that's where the change can start coming from.
Yeah, I think also, like, he, you were talking about, where does bullying start, how does the circle of violence kind of aspect. But I think he also, I remember an interview where he talked about feeling guilt. He's not as a perpetrator, right, of violence, but as a sort of bystander.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's not just him personally, but just Korean society, kind of this willing bystander, closing their eyes to these, injustices and
Yeah.
tragedies happening in the army.
Yeah, that's the big thing for Junho's character is it's like he's a bystander in the abuse in the army. He's been a bystander in his past with seeing his mother abused by his father. And we see those in those flashbacks when he's on duty. And his mother is like, I can't remember the specific thing that she says, but I think it's to the effect of like, why haven't you done anything, right? Or like, why? And then
he gets that question a lot.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing? Why haven't you done anything to stop this? And he gets that question again, like at the beginning, in the middle, and then even at the very end, where you see that the sister of the soldier who had committed suicide,
the first one,
they meet at the crematorium, and she's like, if you knew he was getting bullied, why didn't you do anything to stop it? So that's definitely the constant question throughout this first part of the series.
Yeah. Well, let's take it home, let's let's take it into the last part of the discussion, which is, as a piece of social commentary, did DP make a helpful contribution to this global conversation about, abuse occurring in the Korean military? And I know, Cyhthia, you're saying Korean society at large. I definitely see that connection, the different hierarchical structures and the abuse inherent in that. Do we think that this show is going to have an impact in helping to change things?
Well, I mentioned before how a lot of Korean male viewers felt sort of like this nightmare, right? Revisiting their nightmares in the army, right? DP brought back a lot of terrible memories of their military service. Almost like any Korean guy I've spoken to have like almost nothing good to say about their army experience, right? As I mentioned before, Koreans always sort of routinely say that, the army turns boys into men. But what really happens is that, these men learn to accept the absurdity of Korean society, right? Blind obedience to authority, whether it's like in their schools, in their workplace, from their political leaders. And they learn to accept these sort of irrational social structures that's just sometimes based on age. I mean, Koreans speak in honorifics to their classmates if they were born a few months earlier than them. Like, like if you're born in December versus February of next year, right? There is hierarchy in almost every social relationship, right? And they learn that in the army. Sometimes, and in the army, it's even worse. Rules and sort of these rules of like rationality that we follow in sort of normal society, they don't even apply in the army, right? I mean, remember in the first episode, they chose the military officers by height. If you're over 175 centimeters, you get on the short list, right? It's things, I think it's basically, they learn how to be kind of obedient cogs in the system through the army.
Yep.
And they learn that, just follow. There's nothing to be gained from actually criticizing or challenging the system.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you get beaten up, right?
Oof. Yes. Oh my gosh, there's so much there. Thank you for sharing that and putting it so well. Like inherent, like there's a thread here that like inherent in those hierarchical structures and relationship is the concept of authority, like power over the person who is younger than you, smaller than you, more junior to you. It's not just that they have less experience in something and they should, listen to your advice. It's like, no, you as the superior person, you now have like full reign or power over this person's body, like in a total way.
You mentioned Hwang Jang-soo, right?
Yes.
Like after the army, he was he was big man in the army, right? Bullied everyone. But once he got out, he doesn't really have an education. He has no job experience. So he's working like as an alba somewhere, right? The army does that. Actually, in the army, sort of the usual sort of hierarchy based on socioeconomic class or age, that actually doesn't apply in the army. In the army, it's when, on the year or even like the month that you started the army, right? So even you may like kowtow to someone who's younger than you, who has less experience, less, than who's sort of below you in every sort of socioeconomic indicator outside of the army.
And that's really fascinating. And what that does is it just across the board breaks everyone's like sense of inherent self-worth. Like if they had worth or status outside, it just totally gets broken. Everybody experiences what it's like to be on the bottom and powerless, which is, I guess, the point to prepare you for that. Oh, man. Yes. So many like impacts of the military service. And like, I think we would even connect it to further back in the school system, right? In the office work hierarchy, like the same kind of thing is going on. But in the military, it's this special like hidden zone where no one can hear you from the outside. You're not in touch with your family or anything. So it's just this insidious, like pure distilled arena for abuse in like a fantasy way, almost like you can do anything and have anything done to you in that setting. And this show does a good job of starting to show like, yeah, this is the extent of what goes on there. So in that sense, I think it's really good for, I'll just speak as a non-Korean person, a non-Korean fan. It is really valuable for us to get this inside look because we're not going to get it on variety shows. We're not going to hear it from the idols
real
themselves.
Man shows.
Come on, man. Yeah, exactly.
진짜 사나이. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
They actually mentioned that show, right? Like, there's a soldier who mentions how they're filming 진짜 사나이 somewhere, at a base, neighbor base or something like that. I don't know.
Wow. Yeah, night and day. But yeah, I continue to wonder, it just seems like a really daunting task to change something that is so ingrained and systemic, so ingrained that it connects to like the use of honorifics with a classmate that's a few months older than you. Like how deep to the core do we have to go to change this issue? And you were saying, Cyhthia, that the military just has so much influence and is able to retaliate so hard against anyone from the inside. They're
so not accountable.
No,
right?
To no one.
Yeah. I mean, they have their own military prosecutors, their own military courts. And, all sort of recent scandals show how the higher ups are always more, they're always trying to just hush up problems, right? In their organization.
Yeah. It almost makes me think that, resistance to this starts in our interpersonal relationships, like deciding to make small choices with each other. Like, you know what? I'm not going to talk to you like that. I'm not going to treat you like that. But the military might end up being like the last stronghold of this stuff, as like more of us on the outside are like, I don't feel like acting like this anymore and treating each other differently. Like the military might be the last zone, but I'm curious your thoughts on like how a change might actually occur in society.
Wow. There, our friend Ijang, like his group, his community of friends and colleagues have this sort of movement to not use honorifics.
Hey, there we go.
To always yeah with everybody, right?
Yeah.
That's actually a game. I'm sure you've seen it in variety shows. Like it's Yaja time.
Yaja time, yes.
And I think some organizations sort of say, okay, we'll have like today or during 회식 today, it'll be 야자 time, right?
That's cute.
I mean, we laugh at it, but if honorifics, it's so ingrained and just
powerful.
Our communication, I think, yeah, exactly. And you can have respect for one another without using these sort of, age-old sort of systems, right?
Totally. Yeah. So
I have no easy answer
small.
to that. But I do think maybe women are the answer, right?
Hey, there we go.
Like, I do believe because women don't go through the army, we are inherently more progressive than men in Korean society. Right? But, Korea is still such a patriarchal society in
women
every
don't
facet,
have the power,
right?
the authority. Yeah.
Right? In government and politics, in the corporate world, right? It's hard for us, but I think, maybe we're the answer if we can start.
Yeah, if we don't have that blind spot or that specific trauma that keeps us silent on it, then maybe women will be the, leading the charge on this kind of change.
It's so funny you say that, Cyhthia, because I mean, it's not a spoiler for me to say this about season 2, but you definitely see female characters more in season 2, definitely taking one leadership roles and also more action roles in making change in the second season. So that is something that they brought into the second half.
All right. I'm going to have to turn it on tonight as I enjoy my sundubu.
Yeah. I don't. Right. And I guess to add on to that, like as far as where they continue these conversations about change, again, not to spoil anything. I don't think this is a big spoiler, but you do have scenarios in which you have like the general coming onto a news broadcast being like, the system is important because North Korea is a threat and we have to maintain it the way it is because it works. And then you have, again, the women coming into the conversation and saying, okay, in these specific scenarios of deserters and the issues that happen when, a deserter either harms another person or harms themselves. Yes, especially in the case of the deserter harming other people, they are at fault. But the system, the government is also an accomplice in that scenario.
That's right. They don't want that conversation.
Well, I'm looking forward to season 2.
Yeah.
This weekend.
Let's watch it and let's chat about it. All right. Shall we wrap up?
I just will add one last point just to kind of give updates to how actual changes in the Korean military. So there was a Reuters piece that I found from back in 2021 that mentioned that there in certain scenarios, like especially after 2019, when they allowed, again, going back to what you said, Stephanie, of how, of isolation, when they allowed soldiers to use their cell phones, that there was a lot less scenarios of abuse in the barracks because of again, them being less isolated from society.
Also, they could like record one another, you know?
Ooh, that's big.
Yeah. I mean, right now, there's a huge sort of issue in Korea about bullying of teachers by parents, right?
Ooh.
And one of the issues is like they're all getting their cell phones out and recording each other, right?
Wow.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I think if you are allowed, cell phones, I mean, you could record and document these sort of incidents more clearly. I mean, more easily. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll take any tools, any weapons we can take in this struggle, So on that note, thank you both for a thrilling, insightful conversation on Deserter Pursuit or Deserter Police. Season 2 is out now on Netflix. Check out season 1 and season 2. Let us know what you thought of the show and our discussion in our Slack. And Cyhthia, always a pleasure. Oh my gosh.
Yes,
that was so much fun.
Chatting with you. Is there anything that is there any way that folks can follow you and your work, Cyhthia, or your podcast?
They can go on to KBS Radio one fine day and catch sort of my weekly segment on K-dramas and films that way.
Yay. All right. We'll put a link to that in our description as well. And, you can find me on Twitter at sparker2.
And I'm on Twitter at Michaela, or X, I guess now.
Oh, God.
Michaela JK.
I'm not calling it
my
X.
goodness.
I refuse.
Just wait. It's not, is it Zeet? Or it's not, you're not like tweeting anything anymore. It's Zeeting? What the heck? No, I mean like
I know.
Right?
I refuse.
You're Zeeting each other.
It just sounds so wrong.
Oh my God. It's such a freak show.
It is. Yeah. So we might be on Twitter when you look for us. We might not.
You can find
just being
us
honest.
at the K-pop cast on whatever things are called nowadays.
Twitter, Instagram, all of that.
Yes.
All
Threads, I guess. I don't know.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. And we'll catch you next time on the K-dramacast.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye.